the Pathway to the Baccalaureate program. Today's webinar will be on placement testing at Northern Virginia Community College. During this presentation, we will provide a basic overview of the required placement tests at NOVA and what you can expect in preparing for these tests. We will describe the exams and provide you information about how the results of the test will be used. We will then describe your options for retesting if you are unsatisfied with your results. We will also provide you links to help you prepare for the placement tests and how to deal with test anxiety. At the conclusion of this presentation, we will provide information about where to test and what your next steps will be. Please contact your pathway counselor for the dates, times, and locations of placement tests at your school. So I know what you're thinking. What are the placement tests and why am I taking them? So let me tell you. Placement tests help the college determine which classes are appropriate for you to take. The idea behind this is that we do not want you to be in a class that is too easy and have you get bored with the material, or be in a class that is too difficult and have you fall behind and struggle to complete the class. There are two types of placement tests at NOVA and at most other colleges, English and math. NOVA requires all students to take both the English placement test and math placement test. After you complete both placement tests, you will be required to meet with your pathway counselor for advising prior to registering for classes. Now that you know what the placement test is, let's talk about what to expect. Now I know I have your attention now because this is where we get into the details. It is easier to prepare for the test when you know what to expect. You should leave at least 3 to 4 hours to complete each test, and you should not plan on taking both tests in the same day. The math test is progressive, which means it tracks how you are doing while you are taking the test and gives you questions that are at your appropriate level. With that in mind, the math placement test varies in the number of sections based on how you're doing. There can be between 2 and 9 sections, but it does not mean that you did not do well if you only have 2 or 3 sections. A few things to remember is that you cannot bring an outside calculator for the math placement test, but there is a computer calculator that you can use for the problems. It is the same calculator you see on your personal computer or on the computers in the lab. Also, you want to remember that you can't skip questions and go back to them. The English placement test is the same in that it's 2 to 4 sections and you cannot skip questions or go back to questions. Both tests will be on the computer, so make sure you feel comfortable with the computers before going for the test. You will also want to make sure that you prepare for the test. We will get to that a little later in the presentation. Okay, now for the scoop on the English placement test. There are 2 forms of the test. One called the AccuPlacer is for non-native English speakers. The other called VPT is for native English speakers. If you're not sure which test you should take, please speak with your pathway counselor. In both versions of the English placement test, you will find that there are 1 or 2 multiple choice sections and there is also an essay section. The multiple choice section will ask you a variety of questions that cover reading comprehension or understanding general grammar. In the essay section, you will be able to pick between 2 prompts and write an essay based on that prompt. You will want to remember to organize your thoughts before you start writing the essay. Make sure that you address the question as it is asked. When you get your results, your Pathway to the Baccalaureate counselor can help you to explore which classes will be best for you to complete while at NOVA. If you took the AccuPlacer and placed in either ESL levels 2 through 5 or college level English, or if you took the VPT and placed into ENF 1 through 3 or college level English, you will be advised to enroll in an appropriate English class during your next semester. Those students that do not meet these levels will be advised by your counselor as to the appropriate next steps. For students who placed into ESL or ENF prefix courses, these are developmental classes that will set the foundation for you to succeed on the college level. Here you see a diagram for VPT English placement. You could place into 4 different levels. ENF1, which is the first level, or ENF2, which is mid-level, English 111 and ENF3, or you can place directly into English 111, which is college level English. There is only one form of the math placement test. The questions you see are based on how you are doing on the test. Once you have completed the test, you will place into MTT or an MTH course. Students will meet with their Pathway to the Baccalaureate counselor to determine the correct math class that the student must take to fulfill their educational goals. Some of you may be wondering if you can retest. Here are the guidelines for that. For the VPT English placement test, one retest is allowed within 12 months of the initial attempt, only if taken before you enroll in any English courses. For the AccuPlacer placement test, if you score into ESL level 2 or higher, but choose not to enroll in the recommended classes, you may retest after 1 year. Once you enroll in ESL classes, you cannot retest unless it has been 1 year from the last day of the class. If you score below ESL level 2, you can retest after 6 months. For the VPT Math, students are allowed one retest within 12 months of the initial attempt, if taken before you enroll in any math courses. Thank you for your attention so far. The first code that you will need to email to your Pathway counselor is PtB 2015. We mentioned earlier that you will want to prepare for the placement test. This is important so that you can do your best and feel comfortable and confident during the test. There are a number of ways you can prepare for the placement test. For the English placement test, you will want to take a practice test to see how the exam will assess your skills. Based on how you do on the practice test and how comfortable you are with the material, you may decide that you want to review more information. We have listed some online resources for you to use based on the test that you will be taking. Remember, the VPT is for native English speakers and the AccuPlacer is for non-native English speakers. In order to prepare for the math placement test, you will want to review the practice question and answers and take the practice test. This will help show the areas where you are strong and the areas where you may need some help. The math site is a very helpful tool that will show you how to do the math problems. Again, we highly recommend that you look over this information before the test so you are fully prepared when you take it. It is natural to feel nervous before taking a test. There are some things you can do to help with any test anxiety that you may feel. The first is to make sure you are prepared, which we just talked about. Giving yourself plenty of time will ensure that you do not feel rushed during the test. So remember to allow several hours for each test. Get plenty of rest the night before and eat a snack or a meal before testing. Also, remember that if you are placed into a developmental English class, you will be retested on the first day of class to ensure that you were placed into the appropriate level. If it is found that your placement is too low, they will recommend that you move to a higher level. If you have taken the SAT or the ACT, you may be exempt from taking NOVA's placement test. The exemptions are as follows. For the VPT English, you would need a 500 on both the critical reading and writing components of the SAT test, or a 21 combined score on the ACT test. For the VPT Math, you would need to have scored a 520 on the SAT or a 22 on the ACT. Please note, to place into pre-calculus or calculus, you need to take the VPT math test no matter what. If you think you will need accommodations for your placement test, please come and see your pathway counselor. To receive accommodations in your classes at NOVA, you will need to start by scheduling a meeting with a disabilities counselor on your campus. Thank you so much for your attention so far during this presentation. The second code that you would need to email to your pathway counselor is PtB Kickoff Event, February 28th at George Mason University. As a pathway student, we encourage you to take advantage of taking your placement test at your high school if possible. If you aren't able to test at your high school during scheduled pathway testing days, you can test at NOVA's testing center. Each campus has its own testing center. You can see the contact information for each testing center here. Because the hours at each center are different, you will want to make sure that you check the hours at your preferred location prior to going to the testing center. You can do this by calling or searching keyword testing centers at www.nvcc.edu. Please note, students must know their NOVA IMPL ID number and provide a photo ID prior to testing. So what happens next? First, complete your online application to NOVA. Be sure to write down or print out your student ID number, also known as your IMPL ID number, that is automatically generated after you complete your application. Next, you will want to sign up for a testing time and day with your pathway counselor. On the day of your test, please bring your student ID number, or also known as your IMPL ID number, along with a photo ID with you to your designated testing site. After you've received your results at the end of your exam, check in with your pathway counselor to determine which classes you should take.